I found my best friend's phone open to an unsent text draft she'd never meant for me to see. It started with my name, and by the third sentence, I understood why she'd never hit send. My name is Owen Castellano. I'm 32. I teach high school physics, which sounds calmer than it is. Mostly it means I spend my days explaining momentum to 16-year-olds and my evenings grading lab reports with a coffee that's gone cold twice. I own exactly one good sweater, eat the same 3 lunches on rotation, and have strong, mostly unsolicited opinions about whether a classroom should have natural light. I'm not actively looking for anything serious. I'm also not closed off to it, which is a distinction most people don't bother making, but I've always thought it mattered. I rent the smaller half of a duplex 2 streets from the school, close enough to walk, which matters more in February than anyone tells you in advance. I'd known Maya Okafor for 9 years before that night. We met freshman year of college, assigned as lab partners in a chemistry class neither of us particularly liked. After a seating chart mix-up put us at the same bench by pure administrative accident. She spilled a beaker of something harmless but bright blue on my notebook in the second week, apologized for exactly 4 seconds, and then spent the rest of the semester acting like the friendship that followed had been entirely my idea. She does pediatric occupational therapy now, the kind of job that requires endless patience and an even temper, both of which she has in abundance with her patients and roughly none of with me, which I've always taken as a compliment. She has a habit of cracking her knuckles one at a time when she's deciding whether to say something difficult, working down the row like she's stalling for exactly enough time to find the right words. She also carries a beat-up paperback in her bag at all times, not to read, just to have, a security object she's had since college that she'd deny is a security object if you asked her directly. Her hair has 3 different lengths depending on how stressed her last work week was, a detail I noticed roughly 6 years before I let myself think about why I was tracking it. We'd been roommates for 3 of those 9 years, then neighbors for 2 more after that, then just the kind of friends who had keys to each other's places and never knocked. People asked us constantly if we were together. We always said no, immediately, with the specific speed of people who'd had to answer that question so many times the denial had become reflexive. I believed my own answer for a long time. I'm not sure when exactly I stopped. That particular evening started ordinarily enough. Maya had come over after a long shift to eat leftover pasta and complain about a coworker, which was a fairly standard Tuesday for us. She left her phone on my kitchen counter to go wash her hands, and it lit up with a notification while she was gone. Nothing dramatic, just the screen waking briefly, long enough that I glanced over out of habit. The way you glance at any phone that lights up near you. The lock screen was already off. She must not have locked it before setting it down. And there, sitting open on the screen, was a text thread to her sister, with a draft message typed out beneath it, never sent. The cursor still blinking at the end of the last word. I want to be honest with you about something. It's about Owen. I shouldn't have kept reading. I knew that in the half second before I did it anyway, the way you know plenty of things a half second before doing the thing you know you shouldn't. The draft continued, 3 more lines, before cutting off mid-sentence like she'd started typing it, then stopped herself, then never came back to finish it. I think I've been in love with him for longer than I want to admit, and I don't know how to keep pretending I'm fine being just his best friend when that was where it ended. No period. No deletion. Just abandoned mid-thought. The way you abandon something you've decided is too dangerous to finish, even in private, even to your own sister. I heard the bathroom faucet shut off down the hall. I set the phone down exactly where it had been, screen already dimming back to black on its own, and sat back in my chair like a man who hadn't just had the last 9 years of his life rearranged in 4 unsent sentences. Maya came back in, picked her phone up without a second glance, and kept talking about her coworker like nothing in the universe had shifted. I nodded along, said something appropriately sympathetic at what I hoped were the right moments, and spent the entire rest of dinner replaying 4 sentences I had absolutely no right to have read. I didn't say anything that night. I told myself there was a reasonable explanation, an old draft, an outdated feeling, something she'd typed in a low moment and would never actually act on. I told myself a lot of things that night that didn't survive contact with the next morning. The next few days I started noticing things I'd apparently been ignoring for years. The way Maya went quiet for half a second whenever I mentioned anyone I was seeing, then recovered too quickly, like she'd practiced the recovery. The way she always sat closer to me than she sat to anyone else, not dramatically, just by inches, the kind of distance you'd never measure unless you were suddenly looking for it. The way she'd kept, for years, a ticket stub from a concert we'd gone to in college, tucked into the same paperback she carried everywhere, which I'd seen 100 times and never once thought to ask about. One night that week she came over to return a casserole dish, and I caught her staring at me for a half-second too long, while I was talking about something unrelated. A lesson plan, probably, or the weather. The instant I looked over, she glanced away fast. Too fast. The kind of fast that meant the look had been there longer than she'd meant for me to catch it. I didn't say anything. I'd started to understand that neither of us was going to be the one to say something first. Not yet. Maybe not ever, if I didn't do something about it. I went back and forth for 4 days about whether to bring it up at all. Reading someone's unsent draft felt like a violation, even though I hadn't gone looking for it. And I kept circling the same impossible math. How do you tell someone you accidentally read their heart without making the accident itself the thing that ruins everything? On the 5th night, she came by again, this time with takeout instead of leftovers, and we sat on my couch the way we'd sat on 100 couches over 9 years. Except this time, I couldn't stop noticing the careful half-foot of space she always left between us. The kind of space that only exists because someone's actively managing it. "You've been weird all week," she said, halfway through her noodles. "Weirder than your normal weird." I have a normal weird? You have several. This is a new one. I almost laughed that off the way I would have any other night. Instead, I put my chopsticks down, and something in that small gesture must have told her this wasn't going to be a normal deflection, because she put hers down too, suddenly very still. "Tuesday night," I said. "Your phone lit up on my counter while you were washing your hands." She went very quiet. Her hand found the edge of the paperback in her bag, without her seeming to notice she'd done it, fingers pressing against the worn cover like it was the only stable thing in the room. "I wasn't trying to read it," I said. "It just happened to be open. I saw the first few lines before I could stop myself, and then I couldn't stop reading the rest." "How much?" she said quietly. "Enough." She closed her eyes for a second, the kind of pause where you watch someone decide whether to run or stay. When she opened them again, she didn't look away. "I've started that text probably 11 times, she said. "I have never once sent it. Do you know why? Tell me." "Because 9 years felt like too much to lose on a guess," she said. "I have built an entire life around being the person you call first. I was not willing to risk losing that for the chance you might not feel the same." I went still. My chest did something I genuinely didn't have a name for. Something that had probably been building quietly for years under the easy, comfortable cover of just being best friends, never once asked to explain itself until exactly that moment. "You don't have to do anything with this," I said. "We can pretend I never saw it, finish our food, and go back to being exactly what we've always been." "Is that what you want?" "I asked you first." She looked at me for a long moment, the kind where neither person is performing anything for the other anymore. "No," she said. "That's not what I want." "Then say what you do want." "I want to stop typing that text 11 different ways and actually mean it," she said. "I think I've loved you longer than I've been willing to admit, even to my own sister, even in a draft I never had the nerve to send. I've loved you for longer than I told myself was reasonable, I said. I called it friendship because friendship was safe and didn't require either of us to risk 9 years on a guess. You were never just my best friend. You were the reason every actual relationship I tried felt like a placeholder by comparison. She reached over and took my hand, not dramatically, just simply, the way you take something you've wanted to hold for a long time and finally let yourself. Her knuckles, I noticed, weren't cracking one at a time the way they did when she was deciding whether to say something hard. She'd already decided. For the record, she said, I almost deleted that draft 100 times. I kept it instead. I think some part of me always wanted you to find it, even while the rest of me was terrified you actually would. So this was a long game. This was 9 years of cowardice with very good timing, she said. And I laughed. And she laughed too. And something in the room finally exhaled after 9 years of holding its breath. I kissed her then. Careful. The kind of thing that asks a question instead of making a statement. And she answered it by leaning in immediately, like she'd been waiting 9 years for someone to finally catch up to where she already was. It lasted exactly as long as it lasted before my phone buzzed loudly on the coffee table, and we both startled apart, laughing. It's my mother, I said, glancing at the screen. Asking if I've eaten dinner. Tell her you have, Maya said. Tell her it was very good. It was leftover pasta. And now, apparently noodles. Don't ruin the moment with accuracy, Owen. 3 weeks later, she still hadn't given the paperback back its original job description. It had quietly become less a security object and more just a book she occasionally pretended to read while actually watching me make coffee. We were careful with each other those first weeks, in the particular way people are careful when 9 years of friendship has just become something else entirely. We texted too much, then worried we texted too much, then texted again anyway. A few months after that, nothing about us looked dramatic from the outside, which was its own kind of proof that it had become real. She still cracked her knuckles one at a time when deciding whether to say something hard. Except now, the hard things were smaller. Whose turn to do dishes? Whether we were really going to repaint the kitchen that color. I still found it unbearably endearing instead of just familiar. The way you do when a habit you've watched for years suddenly belongs to someone you get to keep. A year after that, on the anniversary of the night I finally said something, she handed me her phone, unlocked. Screen already open to a new draft text. This one was finished. This one had been sent. I sent the next one, she said. Eventually, to you instead of my sister. I read it. It said exactly what I already knew, in words she'd clearly taken her time choosing, the kind of sentence you only write once you've stopped being afraid of where it might land. 2 years later, when people ask how we got together, Maya tells it the short way, that I read something I wasn't supposed to read, and it ruined nothing, and changed everything. She leaves out the part where she'd started that draft 11 times across 9 years, hoping, in some quiet corner of herself, that I'd eventually find exactly what she couldn't bring herself to send. It wasn't new, what was in that draft. It had been sitting there, for years, unfinished on purpose, waiting for one ordinary Tuesday and one badly timed phone notification to finally bring it into the light. What would you have done if you found an unfinished message with your name at the start of it? And have you ever loved someone so completely as a friend first that admitting it felt like more of a risk than losing them entirely? Tell me your story in the comments below. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.